You are watching Park TV.
Welcome to Monadnock Tonight with your host, Steve Jackson. Coming to you live from the studios of the ParkTheatre in downtown Jaffrey, New Hampshire. Join Steve and his guest today, candidate for the New Hampshire State House of Representatives, Andrew Manival.
Well, I don't think that's correct. No, we do not have Andrew. I'm sorry, folks, that accidentally got put into sequence there. No, today we have a very, very special guest, and I will talk to you about that guest as we progress here. But again, I apologize. We had the wrong intro video racked up there. But first, let me say to everyone, welcome to Park TV's Monadnock Tonight. It is Thursday, August 6th, 2020. It's about 5 p.m. here on the East Coast of America, and this is show number 39. And I am Steve Jackson. I'm the CEO of the ParkTheatre and your host, and we're very glad that you could join us. Now, we have a very, very special guest today. She is the granddaughter of the founder of the ParkTheatre, and you really, that pretty much can start your mind and your imagination rolling. So we will get to our first guest and our only guest today in a moment, but I just want to give you a couple of pieces of notes going on that are important to everyone. And one is about, you might have been reading in the papers, it was in the Monadnock Ledger transcript about, every, let alone personally, what everyone is dealing with since March in dealing with COVID-19, but businesses have been hurt so badly, and of course that means employment's been hurt, and but independent businesses especially, and restaurants, we know, we've talked about them many times on the show, but theaters have been going through a mess, a total mess, because like restaurants, it's a communal experience. It's a gathering of people. And that has that's the principle of a theater, of the community, like a church, that you bring people into a theater. They have a communal experience together, watching something live or watching something that's a film. But independent cinemas have been hit very, very hard. And sadly, a lot of them are on the brink of not being able to survive this. And the subsidies that cinemas have received have been minimal, and there are some special federal grant acts that are out there that independent cinemas, especially the big chains, want them too, but independent cinemas need the help for them. But all cinemas, they employ a lot of folks, and they bring a lot of happiness to a lot of people as well, but they are on the brink. So I'm going to show you a little promotional spot that we put together, because there's an organization called the National Association of Theater Owners, and they specifically cater to the 35,000 movie screens there are all over the United States, chains as well as all of the independent theaters like ourselves, and like the Peterborough Community Theater and the Colonial and the Wilton and smaller chains like down in Gardner and so forth. But it's tough, and there's an awareness that has to be raised for these folks, and to let our congressional representatives know that they need help. And so here's a little spot that we have that I will show you now that will kind of bring a spotlight to what's going on. Well, sorry, here I am with a lot of glitches today. Here we go, one more time. I see. Yes, Kim. When Kim's calling me, I'm sorry, folks, that my mic was off after the video went off. I sometimes we we have a reverb and an echo that happens. Well, again, I'll go back to the video. Hopefully, you did hear the video. And all I'm going to say on that in summary is go to saveyourcinema.com, singular, saveyourcinema.com. And you can find out more about the whole program that the National Association of Theater Owners is doing. And you'll be able to kind of be helped into writing a letter to your congressional representatives, whether you're from Vermont, here, wherever it can find your geolocator of where you are with your computer at that moment, and it'll help you find them if you don't know who they are or you don't know their email addresses. This helps you do it automatically, and it will help you craft a letter very quickly and very easily. So help all the independent cinemas. Go to saveyourcinema.com. What I was just saying on this film, this is from 1966. It stars Donald Pleasance, Jack McGowan, and Jacqueline Bisset. And it was a huge film back in 1966, directed by Roman Polanski. It was the best film at the 1966 Berlin International Film Festival. It won the Critics Award at the 1966 Venice Film Festival. It's a dark comedy, very crazy, but I think you'll get a kick out of it. And also, when you go to Park Pixflix, you go to the ParkTheatre.org, and on the top right, go hit the button that says free movies at Park, and you go to Park Pixflix, and you'll see there are, I think I mentioned it last week, there are like 40, close to 50 films are listed there that you can you can see for free. And whether you show them on your laptop, your computer, and you can also get an app because most of them are curated as I find them on YouTube, that you can get the YouTube app for your Roku or your Apple TV or your Fire Stick or any of those, and you can watch them on your big screen TVs as well. But that's Cul-de-sac, and that starts today, and take a look at that. And okay, now the main guts of what's going on today and it's really, I guess I said before, it's a very, very special day because our first guest today is the granddaughter of the founder of the original Park Theatre, Romulo Vanni. And that is special enough into what you were going to be able to find out in terms of history and the family and how this theater came to be. And our guest is LYN Lambert, and I am going to bring her on to the show right now. And there she is.
Hi, Steve.
Welcome. And pardon my, well, there isn't a show that I do that doesn't have a glitch of sorts. But the last time we tried to get you on the show, there was a broadband internet issue going on with you, but we're way beyond that now.
Right. Hopefully.
I think we are. We've made this much progress. I think we are. Well, LYN, I've been looking forward to this, and from what people have been saying on Facebook with the promotion of the event happening that you were going to be here, I think there are a lot of people interested because you're our link to the heritage of this wonderful, wonderful idea that turned into a theater from your grandfather, Romulo.
Mm-hmm.
And but before we get into his story, which is a wonderful story of someone who comes to America and makes a wonderful life and a family for themselves in this little town, tell me a little bit about yourself so people know a little bit more about LYN Lambert, and then we'll start heading into the history of the theater and your grandfather.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm a Jaffrey native. Was born here, went through the Jaffrey school system, graduating from Conant High School, and went off to Keene State after high school, and got a degree in education and secondary English. And I taught English for a while at Monadnock Regional High School, and then took some time off to raise my children. and then went back to school and got a degree in library science. And I was library media specialist in the Jaffrey Ringe School District, primarily at Ringe Memorial School, for almost 20 years. So I've been retired now for quite some time, enjoying retirement. My husband is Rick, and we have 2 children. One is Peter, and he lives in Jaffrey, and he's actually a history teacher at Monadnock Regional. And we have a daughter, Anne, who's married to Sean Marr, and they live in Ringe. And they are the parents of my 2 6-year-old twin grandsons. So I keep fairly busy. So, and
Yeah.
that's probably it in a nutshell.
And it sounds like it. It sounds like it. But you're a real, and that obviously makes sense because of your grandfather, that you're truly a Jaffrey native.
Right.
Now, luckily, Lynn has supplied us with some wonderful family as well as theater photographs that we can go through as the story unfolds. And let me bring up a photo of your grandfather, and there he is. But we're going to get full frame, and everyone can still hear you, Lynn. So we can talk over a picture of your grandfather. But
All
if
right.
you could tell us now, he came from was it Tuscany area of?
Yes, yes. He was born in 1885 in a small town in the Tuscany region. It's about 15 miles north of the city of Lucca, and the Vanni family had quite a large estate there and a farm, and they were quite prosperous. He had 3 brothers, 2 sisters. All of them immigrated to the U.S. except for one sister who stayed behind and stayed in the homestead in their town. The oldest brother immigrated first. His name was Dominic, and he settled in Peterborough, and he had a fruit and vegetable stand. And then the second oldest brother was Italo, and he settled in Wilton and also had a fruit and vegetable stand. My grandfather, Romulo, came to the U.S. in 1892, and he was only 14, and he stayed with Dominic and learned the whole trade about the fruit and vegetable stand, and progressively got into dry goods in a store, and I lived with Dominic for about 10 years, And in about 1908, he married Lena Rondina, who was from Providence, Rhode Island. And he met Lena through his younger brother, Ulysses, who was actually married to Lena's sister, Bella. So they were married in 1908, had their first child, Dorothea, in 1909, and moved to Jaffrey in 1910. So I guess maybe the fruit and vegetable business with Dominic did well and thrived. And maybe my grandfather was pretty good at saving his money, because when he moved to Jaffrey, he purchased the building at 11 Turnpike Road, which is Daffodil's flower shop. And he purchased that building and actually had a dance hall there. And kind of a side note on the dance hall, it's actually referenced in Willa Cather's book, My Antonia. Willa Cather would have been summering in Jaffrey during those years, writing her novels, and presumably may have gone to the dance hall because she does reference it. References a Mrs. Vanni's dance hall in that book, My Antonia. Of course, the setting for My Antonia was in Nebraska, but still, she described Mrs. Vanni as always wearing a black lace dress, which was kind of the style of Italian women, a formal wear, to wear a black lace dress. So that was his first real estate enterprise. The second was he purchased the M.W. Maurer block, which would have been the block where the Jaffrey Chamber of Commerce is now, and the Bean block. The original M.W. Maurer block was there. And he might have gone in on a fruit and dry goods store there with his cousin Romeo, because that there's a reference there to having a store there. And that original building burned down in 1927, and the Bean block was built the next year. And it's in the place that it is now, with the building that is there now. He sold that building in 1920, I believe. No, he sold the Daffodil building, the building that he had the dance hall in 1920. And he did actually purchase the Jules Durant house, which was on the property where the ParkTheatre is today. He purchased that in 1914, and evidently wanted to, it was just a house then, just a family residence. And by that time he had, 1914, he would have had 3 children, and 2 girls and a boy. And he decided to have a store and his motion picture theater building. So he raised the house and put a store and the entrance to the theater underneath. So his store and theater were on the first floor, and the living quarters were now on the second floor.
And we'll show a couple of photos, early photos, that you'll get a sense of what Lynn's talking about in terms of how the second story used to be the first story.
Yes. Yes.
Now, Lynn, you're starting to talk about the family. So I think it's time. I'm going to bring in a lovely family photograph, and I'll let you do the description. And here it is. Yes.
And this photo would have been around 1931. This is, of course, a photo of my grandfather and his second wife. Unfortunately, his first wife died. His first wife and a son, Charles, died in the Spanish flu epidemic in October of 1918. And this picture is of his second wife, Leonella Stangalini, who was lived in the same town back in Italy that my grandfather came from, and supposedly the Vannis and the Stangalinis knew each other, and it was the custom back then to for the families to know each other, to not an arranged marriage, but to introduce a new couple to get together. So in this picture, we have my grandfather and my step-grandmother. And in the back row, on the far left, is his daughter from his first marriage, from Romolo and Lina Rondina, Margarita. Then going to the right is Dorothea. In back of my grandfather is my father, Romolo John. And then going over more to the right is their daughter, Edna. And in the front is the 2 daughters of Romolo and Leonella Stangalini, and the daughter on the left is Lena, and the daughter in front of my grandfather is Mary.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. And if we move on a little bit in time, and this is a little bit later, I think you have a date on this particular photo, but this is of your grandfather proudly standing in front of his theater. But what he had, if you can describe, and we're going to see some pictures of the interior, that not only was it, it was a home on the second floor, But on the first floor, it was on the left side, looking at the building, was his store, and it's kind of like, I would think people would call it a grocery store, kind
Yes.
of a little bit of everything.
Yes.
And to the right was exactly the point today in the new ParkTheatre that has just been built, is the same exact location. You'll be walking into the new ParkTheatre. So let's take a look at that picture right now. And there it is.
Yes. Around 1950. I would have been around 2 years old when this photo was taken. My grandfather standing at the entrance to his fruit and dry goods store. And I have to call attention to the brass railing on the steps, as I don't think there's anyone growing up in Jaffrey when that store was there that didn't walk down that sidewalk and swing on that brass railing. It was one of the things that you just did as you walked down that sidewalk.
It looks very inviting.
Yes, it was. I remember going into the store. It was, there was a lot of merchandise in that store. He carried just about a little bit of everything. I do remember as you entered the store, when right on the left was the popcorn machine. And all of the children in the Vanny family had jobs to do when in the ParkTheatre and the store. And it was the job of some of the girls to fill the bags of popcorn or boxes of popcorn for the theater productions and for the movies. So that was one job that the children had. I do remember in the store too, there were shelves and shelves of cigars, because it was very seldom that you saw my grandfather without a cigar in his mouth. It may not have been lit, but it was there. And there were lots of cigars, lots of, like I said, lots of everything. As he remodeled, as time went on and he remodeled the store and the theater, he sent, and I'm sure we'll see it too when he show the pictures of the interior.
Here he is inside the store by himself, again, standing proudly with lots and lots of things to sell.
Oh, yes. And couple of the things that I do remember in this photo, first, the soda fountain. It was a beautiful soda fountain. And he had sent back to Tuscany, which of course is a large area of quarrying for marble. And he had sent back for marble to be sent. And it was a lot of marble that he used in his soda fountain. And also there were two like ice cream parlor tables and chairs, black wrought iron with white and black marble tops, that I remember sitting at. And my sister and I would go into the store, and before
there's the wider photo from 1938.
And in this photo, you see the soda fountain. My grandfather is behind the soda fountain. That is my father. That is the other gentleman in the picture. My father worked in the store and in the theater, many, many hours in both. But I do remember the sitting at those beautiful marble-topped ice cream parlor tables before the movies, when we went to the movies. And always my grandfather there was a huge red freezer chest in the back of the store, and with ice cream novelties and popsicles and things like that. And we would always be treated to orange popsicles when we thought they were delicious. And also the fraps. I remember drinking the fraps from the soda fountain, and they were also delicious.
It looks very inviting there. Of course, I've got to ask, you're talking so much about the marble soda fountain, that what happened to that? Do you know?
No.
After Yeah, boy, that looks so wonderful. I wish we had that for our new concession area.
Oh, I do. Oh, and I so wish that I had one of those ice cream parlor
Yeah,
tables with the wrought iron chairs. They were just beautiful. I mean, I was only, 4 or 5 years old, and remember them, so they were impressive. So, yeah, I
yeah.
don't know what happened
There's
to them.
there's so much to grab in this photo. I mean, of course, in the lower left, you can see the park posters that were promoting the upcoming shows that were playing at the theater right next door, and
And
behind here.
that's how I figured out that was 1938. I kind of did some research on what the movies they were showing that were on those
That
posters, so I get an idea of what year that was.
Yeah, and on the last shot, that was your grandfather on the outside of the store. There was a poster there for a film called Captain China,
Yeah.
and that came out in 1950, so that dates that photo.
Yes. Yeah.
But you can see the Coca-Cola marketing materials up there, and there's just so many different things. You just want to be in a store like this. I mean, this is a fun store. We need another one of these back on Main Street, and I believe
Right.
that has been said on the comments here from Lisa Bosner, that she says we need another store just like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody would disagree.
Right.
Uh, all right. Well, that's a very inviting shot, and it's so wonderful. It has your father and your grandfather in it.
Yes. Yes. One of my favorite photos.
Yeah, that's a classic. Um, and let's see. Now, you were helping out in the store, you were saying. Everyone had a little job to do either in the theater or
Yes.
the store?
Yes, all the children did have a job in the store. Yes. By the time that the store and the movie theater got going, the two older daughters, my aunts would be my aunt, my Dorothea and Margarita. And I'm sure that there are people watching this that will remember them because my aunt Dot, she married Lester Hammond. Her name was Dot Hammond, and she taught at Jaffrey Grade School. They went to both of Margaret and Dot went to Keene Normal School, which was what it was back then. Both graduated as teachers, and my aunt Dot taught at Jaffrey Grade School for decades. So there are, I'm sure, a lot of people watching right now that might remember her or maybe had her for a teacher. And also my aunt Marga, her real name was Margarita, but they called her Marga. And she married Phil Darling, and she established the Darling Kindergarten, which a lot of residents of Jaffrey went to back then. It was in the Baptist church, which was where the Jaffrey post office is right now. There was a Baptist church there, and that's where the kindergarten was held. So Myra and Dot were busy off at school and college, but then there was another daughter, Edna, and in between there, of course, there was Charles, but Charles died with my grandfather's first wife, Lena, in that Spanish flu epidemic in 1918. So that was when she died when my father was only 18 months old. So my father really didn't know his real mom well. But anyway, they did. All the children had jobs. My father worked hours and hours in the store, and he also worked in the theater. The two younger daughters, Mary and Lena. Lena worked the box office a lot. She sold tickets in the box office. I think Mary ran the concession stand, selling the candy and all a lot. And my father, besides working the store, one of his jobs was to patrol the aisles of the theater during the movies, the productions, mainly on Saturday afternoons when it was the Saturday matinee, and just about every kid in Jaffrey was there, and that place was packed. And so he didn't necessarily like that job too much, but he had to keep the kids under control.
No, I've heard some stories about the patrolling and your grandfather patrolling as well to make sure the feet were off the backs of the seats and things of that nature.
Right.
I'm going to show Lynn. Here's another photo for folks to take in. Now, this one, based on the cars, I'm guessing it's circa 1930. Let's take a look at that. This is gives you an earlier and also gives you a better sense of the of what Lynn was talking about in terms of the house that was moved from the first floor and elevated up to be the second floor.
Yes, yes. And when he first did that, what he did was there was a barn in the back of the house, and how he first projected the movies was he projected them out the kitchen window on the second floor and onto the wall of his barn. And that was how it first started. And then it gradually added on and added on. Between 1924 and 1945, the theater doubled in size. So he was always adding on and remodeling and making something better. So
Well, let's move on, because we'll see to some comparison, because the next is going to be this we're saying is, early 30s probably, but we'll move up to 1948 because there was a parade downtown, and it was celebrating the 175th anniversary of Jaffrey on August 21st, 1948. And you get another vantage point of the alley that still exists today, with the new theater and of the marquee, and of can you enlighten for folks like myself, Lynn, what is that they are? What is this? What are the sprouts?
Well, no, I can't. Unfortunately, I really can't enlighten anything.
Well, unless maybe somebody on Facebook, if they happen to know what's, if they can type in to tell us what this particular float was represented at the 175th anniversary.
Yeah.
It's unique, interesting, and but I don't know exactly what it was for.
No, I don't. I have no idea. I'm sorry. I never saw that parade. I wasn't even born yet. So
Yeah, no, that's it's
but
unusual.
it does show the additions that my grandfather did put on the theater. And because there was at first just a house in the barn, and then just all of a sudden it just moved into this large theater and decorated it in the Art Deco style. And so that certainly that marquee is all different than what we had seen in the previous photo.
Right.
So.
Right. And a lot of that upgrade, as you were saying, happened in the early 1940s.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Where he expanded the size, made it into more of a true cinema of the time, and
constructed a stage also.
Yeah, and had a stage that would have performers, and as we were talking about earlier, that your grandfather was very benevolent individual to organizations in town in terms of helping raise money for high school kids to make a trip down to Washington, D.C., to raise money for fishing tournaments, for the Cub Scouts. He would show films and give the money to these organizations, and he did a lot of things for the community.
Yes. I think he did very well. He was quite the entrepreneur, and I think he did very, very well in all of his endeavors, and he was very gracious to share that with the community.
Yeah, no question about it. Now, here's an interesting photo, and we'll bring it up full screen. This particular photo was found in the, I found it in the MGM database. MGM would do an inventory nationwide of every single theater that was that were presenting MGM films, and of course the Park Theater was presenting MGM films. But this really, if you kind of put your fingers in front of the first floor, you can see how that second floor was really the first floor of this house.
Yes. And the door on the right-hand side of the building was how they entered the residential area upstairs. I can remember in going up there, and was always for family gatherings, and of course all the children. And I had about 8, 9 cousins that lived in town. And so we would go upstairs, and when my grandfather married his second wife, Leonella, she was quite a bit younger than he was, and he had gone back to Italy to find a new wife to marry her, and he stayed there for several years, and even bought a house there. And they got married over there. And when she came over with him back to the United States, she brought her sister with her, her sister Maria. And I remember as a little girl going up to the residence and a family gathering, and my step-grandmother's sister Maria, and we called her Zia Maria because Zia is aunt in Italian. And she would always be in the kitchen cooking spaghetti. The family gatherings always involve spaghetti. She'd cook the spaghetti sauce, and all of the kids, so myself and my cousins, would eat on a table out on that screen porch overlooking the main street, where the adults, ate in the dining room, but the kids were delegated to the porch. But
that's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
We'll go on about the same time is our next photo. And you can tell us a little bit, but I think we may be moving past the ownership time of your grandfather, but you'll be able to help me comment. Well, now I've got to keep that. Hold on. This one, we will go right to that. So if you can tell everyone about that particular photo.
Okay. Yes, this is, I believe, after my grandfather passed away in May of 1954. The family had been very involved in the whole theater, and I often wondered why my father didn't take over the management. But I think having grown up with it and having it be, living right above it, it was so much a part of his life that he wanted to go on to something different. So the theater was sold to Marty Dito of Peterborough. That was in 1954. And I'm not sure of the date of this photo, but I know that there was a luncheonette there when I was in high school. But I'm not sure if this is in the 1960s. It possibly could be. Marty Dito owned the theater from 1954 to 1967, and then he sold it to David and Betty Sawyer, and they ran it and kept it open until 1976, and then it was closed down. So I think that this photo is probably in the early 60s. And I'm not sure who lived up above the theater or the store at that time. I don't remember. But I have to say that even after the theater was sold to Marty Dito and to Betty and David Sawyer, I still went to the theater all the time to see movies. All growing up in elementary, junior high, and high school, the theater was always a place for us to go, for our entertainment.
Well, describe to folks what was the experience, just as trying to distance yourself for a moment, that of being just somebody who's a young kid who's going to the movies, what it was like going to the movies at the Park Theatre.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll go after my grandfather died, because before my grandfather died, my sister and I got in free. So, but after he
Right.
passed away, we had to buy our tickets. But no, the experience, let's say, especially on a Saturday afternoon, still when you're in elementary school and middle school, it was still jam packed with kids. We all met there. Even when we were in high school and went in the evenings, you would go in, buy your tickets, go into the lobby. The concession stand would be there, and then you go through the doors. And there was one, large aisle going down the center, and then two aisles on either side. And still in high school, we went to the theater a lot. We saw a lot of movies. So,
Can you remember any titles of movies that you saw at the Park Theater?
I actually think I saw The Graduate there, but I'm not so sure. I don't know. Don't have a really good memory. I think when I was really little, I think I remember seeing Bambi in the
Yeah,
theater. Yeah,
wonderful.
that's when I was younger, because that was just devastating to me, that movie.
For many children and adults as
Yeah,
well.
yes, yeah.
Now, this last, I know this is more of a memento, but in terms of some marketing materials, this was a schedule from 1952, the program week of March 30th. And now, if anyone knows any of these titles, I mean, I know one because it came from a book, but Aaron Slick from Pumpkin Creek. If anyone wants to comment from Facebook on that particular one with Alan Young and Dinah Shore, we'd love to know more about that. The Flame of Araby, Maureen O'Hara, and then Red Badge of Courage. Yes, we know the title, and maybe I've seen that one. And Banner Line with Sally Forrest and Lionel Barrymore. Now, so for folks, it's kind of interesting to see what the scheduling was. Once a night, Monday through Saturday, one show at 7:30, Sunday, 6:30 and 8:30. And there's that Saturday matinee that you're talking about at 2 p.m.
Right.
And my guess at about this time in 1952, I would be guessing it was about 35 cents to get into the film.
Probably, yes.
Somewhere in that vicinity, give or take.
Yes.
Um,
And I'm sure that these movies were probably not shown on the Saturday matinee, because those were usually cartoons. Or they always had the news of the day and cartoons, and then a kid's movie. I don't recognize any of those movie titles, but certainly recognize the actors' names, though.
yeah, same that I don't know them that well either.
Yeah.
But we all know that there were lots of movies being shown at that time because television was still in its infancy,
Right.
and so theaters were feeling a little bit of the hurt of television because it was new, and but they were innovative. And one thing, I don't know if it's on this particular picture. I think yes. I'm going to go back to this one again, this absolutely amazes me because I blew this photograph up, and if you look, you can't really. There's a banner hanging underneath the front of the marquee, and what that says is CinemaScope. So that also, certainly we knew that this was probably I think CinemaScope was started like in 1953 or so, the widescreen TV, widescreen motion pictures, as a result of trying to have something better than a black and white television screen.
Right.
How your grandfather, this may be post your grandfather, but how they got a CinemaScope screen in that size theater, it's something we're working on today, as wide a cinema screen as we can put into the new one. But but they did it, and it's amazing that Jaffrey's Little Park Theater was showing CinemaScope movies in the 1950s. I mean, that's wonderful.
Right. And just a note too, I never remember going up into the projection room of the theater, but my sister did. There was very, very steep stairs going up to the projection theater. And of course, the projection equipment was huge, not what they have today for sure. And my father would since she was older than me, my father let her go up with them. And of course, they also had to make sure that they changed the reels. My father didn't necessarily work as a projectionist. He was too busy going doing other things from the store and the theater. But one projectionist that I do remember the name was Jim Roberts, and he worked as a projectionist for a long time. But there were also a lot of other people that did work as a projectionist at the ParkTheatre, even some my age that worked there after my grandfather passed away, and it was owned by Marty Dito and Betty and David Sawyer.
And for people, I mean, very few people know these days about what a projection booth looked like back then. And because back then you had to have two projectors.
Yes.
Because they could not fit an entire film on one reel. Right. So the projectionists had to go back and forth from one projector to another projector and back and forth. And there were little cues that were put onto the films, onto the celluloid, that would cue the projectionist to be ready, because there's going to be a changeover coming up. And then later in the, it wasn't for a long time. I think in the 70s, I think it started that they were able to make huge reels that you could put the entire 35 millimeter film on at one reel and just let it go all the way through at once, and made the life for the projectionist a lot easier. That's for sure. And but these days you don't get that opportunity to see accidentally that the celluloid is burning because it got caught in the projector.
Oh, and that happened a lot. I remember watching movies, and you'd get to the middle of the movie, and all of a sudden it would go flip, 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 like that, or it just burn away. Yeah, or if they weren't quick enough to change reels, it would just stop, and everyone would, could do a little booing. While
oh yeah, well, listen, well, we all know there's still technical glitches even in the modern digital theaters. It's possible because of sound issues or whatever, or bulbs burn out. Some things never change, but well, I'll tell you, Lynn, you have given everyone today a history lesson, but that it's so much more than a history lesson, because it's your family, and it's your grandfather and your father and your whole family. And the ParkTheatre was a family business.
It was.
And without Romulo, none of us would be here talking about this today. Right. And he has given us the light to reimagine this theater for today, and keeping the same goals of what he was trying to do for the community, to bring things they have never seen before, and to enlighten them, to entertain them, to educate them, and to do as much as he could for the community of Jaffrey and many other communities surrounding. So he really is a spirit that lives on in this theater. And as we open this theater, it's a tribute to what he brought, almost 100 years ago to this town. It's absolutely amazing.
And I certainly appreciate that there are so many people that have worked on this project that understand that. And I want to thank all of the past and present trustees, and especially Caroline Hollister, they've just worked tirelessly on this project. And also want to mention how pleased I think my grandfather and the whole Vanny family would be at the design of the building, because it incorporates so many of the original parts of the building that it was kind of sad to see the old building go down, but it was it had to be that way. But to see that new beautiful building now and how it is based on the original, it's very, very satisfying. And so,
And look,
I thank everyone involved.
well, the nice thing that there are some mementos that are going to be carried into the new theater that will, I think the folks that remember the old theater will take a look at them and be very pleased. So there'll be some historic mementos that we will have, and we'll have cabinets, and we'll certainly always talk about the history of this theater. So it's so rich, and again, what any theater does for a community, especially a smaller size community, is wonderful. And whether it's live, but especially because of the history of motion pictures, of what this particular theater did for so many people from 1922 to 1976, and but it wouldn't have that legacy, and it wouldn't have its continued legacy if it didn't start with your grandfather, Romolo Vanni. So, Lynn, we thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and we can't wait until we get our doors open and you officially, with other members of the Vanni family, enter the doors that are pretty close to where the original doors were that your grandfather installed. And one thing, while Lynn is still with us here for a moment, that I want to ask everyone, because you've seen just a small amount of the photographs that Lynn has of obviously her family, but of the theater as well. So what we'd love to do is, we know they're out there, and if you don't have any, but hopefully you have some photographs of the theater anytime it was in operation from 1922 to 1976. You might have been an usher. You might have worked the concession stand. You might have just had some friends and you brought along a camera, or it was a birthday party at the theater. We would love to get as many photographs and 8mm home movies, Super 8 movies as well, of anything about the theater into the archives of the theater, so that we can maintain them. So if you have them, we will help scan them for you or get them copied and protect them for you. But we'd love to, if you could share them, you can give us a call here at the theater anytime during the week and let us know. But tell your friends, if you know that you had a friend that worked at the box office or worked in the concession stand, again, just let them know, do you have any photographs of the Park Theater, inside or outside, especially inside? We would love to see them and add them to the collection that Lynn has given us to be able to use to maintain the history of the Park Theater. Mm-hmm. So again, Lynn, thank you so much for being with us. This time we did not. The only glitch was on my end, as per usual. Yours was glitch free, and that's wonderful. And it's wonderful having you with us.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We'll see you soon. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow. Well, I'll tell you, that's a history lesson. I've heard many historical points about the theater, but I've learned a few more thanks to Lynn. And as I said, as I was saying, as we were closing, please, if you have any mementos, old tickets, anything about the Park Theater, we would love to take a photograph of it or scan it and be able to put it into the archives of the theater for everyone to see through online or physically. Maybe some things that are borrowed and put into a showcase, which we will have of past mementos and memorabilia of the theater. So we thank Lynn and we thank her family so much, and we thank her grandfather for doing what he did. And he's one of those, those folks that came over from, whether it was Italy or Spain or anywhere that emigrated into our country and just did it. You can only imagine what it would be like coming to this country and having very little and trying to figure it out. And then for those that worked so hard and made it happen. And here's a man that made an impact that's being felt 100 years later. It's wonderful. It really is wonderful. So a very special day on Monadnock Tonight. I would like to let you know that on Thursday, we had a glitch on next Tuesday, August 11th, because we had some problems bringing in Andrew Manivel. Andrew is running as a state rep for our district 14 in our area. And we could not get Andrew's connection to work with our connection, but we're going to give it one more shot because we want to get all the candidates that are running in our area for state representative to come on and talk about why they're running and what issues that are important to them. But we're going to make another attempt with Andrew on next Tuesday, August 11th at 5 p.m. So with that, I would like to remind everyone that if you have questions, and again, if you have materials that I've been talking about, one easy way to contact us is to go through our ParkTV email address to send your photos or just send me a note. And we'll track it down with you, parktv@theparktheatre.org, or you can call us here at 532-9300, 532-9300. And as we say at the end of all of our programs, we ask you to be safe, and we hope you will be safe. We hope you will be healthy. Always be kind, be hopeful, because we can get through this. I'm Steve Jackson. I am so glad you were with us on this very special day, learning about the history of the original Park Theater. It's a special history, and more history is to be made. So stay with us. We will see you on Tuesday. Have a wonderful weekend, and good night.